Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 2 of the Falcons Camp Confidential Training Camp and Preseason Mini-Series presented by myself, Reggie, and the Lunch Break Podcast on Dive Team Media Network. This episode has been edited by Creative Logic Solutions Incorporated, executive production team. This episode has been edited, executively produced. This episode has been executively produced by Creative Logic Solutions Incorporated. What's up, y'all? I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Before you do anything else, remember you like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, follow the Dive Team Media Network, follow the Splashcast, and follow all of our other shows. Follow LOA Amaker on all of your socials, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube. We got a lot of content coming for you guys. We can't wait for you guys to see what we got going on. As you know, we are doing I am doing my mini series for the Falcons preseason and training camp. If you have a chance, go back and watch the offensive preview and what we're kind of looking for when it comes to offense. We're looking at depth behind Michael Penix Jr., what we do with Kirk Cousins, of course, Kyle Pitts, as well as the wide receiver room and how everything stacks out. And Zach Robinson in the second year of play calling. A lot of good information, a lot of good discussion. Make sure you go listen and follow and watch that one as well. Episode 2, we are actually talking about the defense. So with the defense, there's a lot going on. I call this a defensive retooling. For the first time in at least 5 to 7 years, we don't have our anchor as a defensive line. The Atlanta Falcons defense went through a lot. We hired Raheem as head coach, who was a defensive coordinator with the Rams before, and also a defensive coordinator with the Bucs, as well as being a defensive coach or defensive assistant with the Falcons, as well as an offensive assistant. So he's very well versed in schematics of football. So you hire Raheem Morris. I think he was the defensive coordinator with the Rams when they won the Super Bowl. You then bring in Jimmy Lake, and you hope that the defense improves. It doesn't work. So you fire Jimmy Lake because we couldn't hold a lead, and then you bring in Jeff Ulbrich. Our defense and our defensive identity since the Super Bowl year has been a team that cannot pressure the quarterback. The Falcons have been in the bottom 5, sometimes bottom 2 of quarterback sacks over the last 7 years. We are awful. We cannot get to the quarterback. And oftentimes we blame the DBs and secondary for a lot of things going on, but we can't generate any pressure. So Jeff Ulbrich is, first of all, he's tied to the Falcons. He was there with Raheem under Dan Quinn, I believe, when we went to the Super Bowl. So Jeff Ulbrich is there, and he has a different defensive identity than I think we've had in the past. He is an attacking defense. He has a 3-4 defensive scheme where he runs left defensive end, nose tackle, right defensive end, and then 2 rush players and 2 inside linebackers. Will, strong side linebacker, is Will and Sam, which is your weak and strong side linebacker, and then your inside linebackers as well. I have high expectations for Ulbrich. I think the Falcons have done a really, really good job with giving him all of the fast cars, the race car package, as some defensive coordinators call it, to get after the quarterback. Let's talk about the edge and linebackers first. What I can expect from the edge, or what I'm looking for in training camp, is one, for the depth chart to be settled. We have one of the best drafts, to me, that we've had in a long time. Very defensive heavy oriented. We drafted Jalen Walker, the do-it-all front 7 football player from UGA. He was the, I believe, linebacker of the year in college football. And then we traded back into the first round and traded our first round pick for next year. So we essentially drafted 2 first round picks and we got James Pierce Jr., who is full of talent. I compare him to somebody like Alden Smith almost. Full of talent, quick first step, very difficult to block when he's engaged, but it was always talk about his character and love of football, and all of those things is what kind of drove him down in the draft to get picked at 23 or 26 or wherever we traded up with the Rams to get him. But our defense for the first time is extremely young in the front set. Our defensive edge players, outside of Leonard Floyd, right now they have Jalen Walker on the depth chart starting as the opposite of Leonard Floyd. Now, we do have a lot of players at edge. Where does Ebiketie fall into all of this? You remember we drafted him first, I want to say in the first round after Kyle Pitts, the year after Kyle Pitts, maybe it was the year before Kyle Pitts. When we drafted Ebiketie, you have James Pierce Jr., you have Jalen Walker. D'Angelo Malone is listed as an outside linebacker, rush linebacker, but they've actually, as of training camp starting yesterday, have really been working him at the inside linebacker spot. So then you also have players like Caleb Johnson and Braylon Trice. So when it comes to the edge players, we have a lot of rotational depth. We have Leonard Floyd, you have Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Arnold Ebiketie, Braylon Trice, and Caleb Johnson. We should be able to get after the quarterback all the time. There should never be a down where they go back to pass and there's not somebody there within 3 seconds because we're so deep at the edge position. I am a little nervous with how our linebackers are looking. I love Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis and Jalen Walker to me are the same player. I think you're going to see them as wild cards all around the field. JD Bertrand showed a lot at linebacker for me last year. The thing is, we lost Nate Landman, who was a really good run defender. Not so great in pass defending, but really good run defender. And we signed Divine Diablo. So it's very important that Divine Diablo rounds into shape. I think he's on the injury report right now. So he's not really practicing with the team, but it's very important that we can use Divine Diablo as an inside linebacker opposite Caden Ellis because of his athleticism. The thing about our defensive scheme for our linebackers and edge rushers, which are basically linebackers, is they got to be multiple. They got to be able to guard the pass, rush the passer, and be able to play off of your defensive line, who in a 3-4 is there to eat up blocks so that you can flow and stop the run. I'm looking for our linebackers, who's going to step up against next to Caden Ellis, because I don't think Troy Anderson, even though I love Troy Anderson, I love Troy Anderson when he's healthy. He's fast, he's instinctive. He played running back and linebacker and quarterback in college. So he can catch the ball, as you saw with a pick 6 against the Saints when he's healthy, and he can read and react very, very quickly. But the fact is, the matter is, he's on the physically unable to perform list right now, and he can't play. He's hurt. A lot of times it's not about talent when it comes to being able to be on the field. It's all about availability. And with all of these linebackers vying for a spot, I'm not sure if there's a space for Troy Anderson. I'm pretty sure JD Bertrand and D'Angelo Malone will take that spot for me. Best of luck, but I mean, but we'll see. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see if he can make the team. I'm looking to see how he look rushing the passer. I'm looking to see who's going to be some of the packages that we play. Who are going to be some of the personnel? How do we play all of these players at the same time? I believe that we're going to be more like Minnesota. You go back and look at Minnesota and how they play with Brian Flores. They are they blitz all the time, and they play a lot of linebackers and a lot of safeties. If you look at football, it's the same as basketball. Basketball is becoming the positionless game, right? You have the center who could be your point center, point forward, point guard. Like you really only have front court and back court. There's really no other players, no other positions. Football on defense is following a similar trait. You have players that are basically in the front seven or in the defensive line and linebackers, and then you have the defensive backfield where they're multiple. The Falcons have a lot of linebackers that are multiple. Hopefully, they can do many things. One of the spaces that actually concern me is the interior D line. But before we get to the interior D line, who do we think is going to be a dark horse contributor when it comes to the front seven in the edge? I think it's going to be JD Bertrand. I think JD Bertrand probably carves out a space for him on the 53-man roster, and he gets he gets Troy Anderson out of here. I think JD Bertrand got invaluable experience, just like Michael Penix, really, when he came to play, and he got to play against Carolina, Washington, and New York as well. So I'm looking for JD Bertrand to be my dark horse edge or linebacker to make a contribution, and I'll be watching him during the preseason. All right, back to the interior D-line. The interior D-line scares me. I'm not going to lie. This is the first year that we have not had Grady Jarrett, who, I'm going to say it, I said it before, he was a mini Aaron Donald at his height. He's a little in his height of his career. He's a little undersized, so as he gets older, when he loses that athleticism, it's going to be difficult for him to continue to generate the pressure that he is. But for all intents and purposes, Grady Jarrett is one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. But we couldn't re-sign him. He's at that point now where you either re-sign him and overpay him as he declines, or you allow him to walk and you lose a figure of the Atlanta Falcons organization, a staple. We went down the road of paying declining players with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Not that they didn't have the talent, but they were just older and hurt all the time. Grady Jarrett, this regime is not going to go down that road again. We are not going to kick the can down the road outside of Kirk Cousins. Outside of Kirk Cousins. I know. But in terms of anybody else outside of the quarterback, we're not doing that again, right? So we had to let Grady go. He went to Chicago along with everybody else, apparently. And for the first time, we're extremely young. Not extremely young, but we're young on the defensive line. We have Rook Ororo, who came out of Clemson, very similar to Grady, penetrating interior defensive lineman, basically a bigger Grady Jarrett. I expect for him to take a big step forward. And then you have David Onyemata, who in the 3-4 is probably going to play the nose tackle. And then you have Morgan Fox, who's going to play the left side defensive end. And I believe in training camp day one, he was running with the ones at left defensive end. But that in those three doesn't sound daunting, but I think what we are using is our players and our depth. The plan is going to be to wear down the offensive line. Because behind Morgan Fox, we have Zach Harrison, and the second string is Zach Harrison, Kentavious Street, and Taquan Graham. Then we have Laquel London, Brandon Dorlus, and Simeon Barrow Jr. We legit have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players. I don't know anything about Simeon Barrow Jr., but I do know Everybody else has had significant playing time. Taquan Graham would probably be our starting right side defensive end if he didn't tear his Achilles 2 years ago, right? So he's finally, all of these injuries take really, a lot of people say 12 months and they come back and play because of the money, but it really is an 18-month injury, ACL, MCL, depending on your position. But Achilles for anybody is going to be an 18-month injury. So he's back. And at this point, all of our defensive linemen are penetrating defensive linemen. They are guys that get, except for David Onyemata. But everybody else, the plan is to set the edge and get to the quarterback. In a 3-4 defensive scheme, our defensive ends are supposed to set the edge. Morgan Fox is probably a great edge setter. David Onyemata is a good edge setter. So I could actually see us putting him at edge, right side defensive end, and then putting Rook Oro at nose tackle at the 0, the 1, or the 3 technique, so that he can use his quickness and versatility to penetrate the offensive line. We are built to rush the passer. Our defense, our front seven, and our interior line is built to rush the passer. What I'm looking for this preseason and in training camp from our defense interior line, our front seven, is how are y'all going to stop the run? We don't really have a large defensive lineman to stop the run. Not up the middle. We have a large defensive lineman in terms of left side defensive end, right side defensive end, and Morgan Fox, Onyemata, or Rook Oro, Zach Harrison, and Taquan Graham. All those guys are 6'2", are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guys that can set the edge with long arms, that can set the edge very well. Up the middle, boy, we soft. We're a little soft up the middle. Pause if necessary. If you have Onyemata and Oro kind of flip-flopping between end and defensive and nose tackle, and then behind second string nose tackle is Kentavious Street and LaCale London, typically your nose tackle in the 3-4 defensive scheme is like 6'5", 350. Is a big dude that's going to be able to eat up blocks so that your speedy linebackers can go anywhere they want to pretty much unabated and use their athleticism. We don't have a huge defensive lineman. We don't have a huge nose tackle. Now, you can pay attention to the waiver wire, to free agency, because there may be a couple out there, a couple older guys that can just really be tree trunks and stop and basically just hold up the center and the guards. But I'm looking for us in training camp. I need to figure out who's going to be our run stuffer. Who is going to be the guy that replaced Grady? Can Rook actually make it to be able to be an interior pass rushing presence? I want to see this 2024 draft class, because right now the 2025 draft class has all the hype for our defense. But this 2024 draft class with Braylon Trice, with Brandon Dorless, I think Rook Oro, he was 2024 too, right? 2024, Rook Oro. We have those young guys. We've got to step up on them. I am looking for them to make an impact early in training camp. I want to hear their names I want to hear their names being called as disruptors. If our defensive line can be disruptors and allow our linebackers to run around and make plays, top 15 defense, baby. Top 15 defense if we can stop the run. Top 10 maybe if we can stop the run. We are built to stop the run. Let's go to the secondary. Defensive backfield. We are investing in the youth movement. AJ Terrell signed an extension last year. He is definitely going to be our cornerback 1. We are rolling right now with Mike Hughes at cornerback 2. If you have a chance, go back and subscribe to the Splash Cast on all your socials, as well as the IT Media Network. There's a callback to where we talked about Mike Hughes being anointed as cornerback number 2. Me personally, I think that we should go get somebody else. A lot of people, and y'all on TikTok said that you did not want Asante Samuel Jr. I would rather kick the tires on Asante Samuel Jr. I was holding out hope for Jair Alexander, but I expect for the Atlanta Falcons defense, unless some of these guys are a step up at right cornerback, right? Like Clark Phillips, D Ford, I think is somebody. Your left cornerback, AJ Terrell, uh, our nickelback D. I'm sorry, I said D Ford. D Ford played defensive end a long time ago. D Alford, Billy Bowman Jr., Kevin King. So, and then of course undrafted free agent Kobe Bryant, who has the most hype of any undrafted free agent I've ever seen, at least for the Falcons. Most hype ever. So and then of course there's undrafted free agent that we signed as an undrafted free agent rookie, Natron Brooks, who had a hell of a 3 games last year and has solidified himself as at least a practice squad player. But if you look at the starting backfield, defensive backfield is AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates III, Jordan Fuller, who we signed in free agency from the Carolina Panthers by way of the Rams, because he has ties to Raheem, is projected to be the starting free safety with Jesse Bates as the strong safety. And then Mike Hughes is the right corner with D. Alford, for now, penciled in as the starter at the nickelback. I can say this without a doubt. Billy Bowman is probably going to be the starting nickelback. I don't see D. Alford making it. But that is going to be our 2 position battles that will probably take precedent over everything else during training camp. Is going to be cornerback 2 with Mike Hughes, or Clark Phillips, who has flashed in the past, but he's just undersized. And then nickelback between Clark Phillips, Billy Bowman, and D. Alford. If we can figure those positions out and just hold it in the road, not even be, I would love to have a cornerback 2 like Pittsburgh, who has Jalen Ramsey and Jerry Porter Jr., which is basically 1A and 1B. I would love to have that issue, but we just don't have the money. Now, we could get rid of Kirk Cousins, maybe trade him for a cornerback. That would be great. But I think a quick fix or somebody to add into it, I'm going to keep saying Asante Samuel Jr. You got to pass your physical, ASJ, Asante Samuel Jr. You got to pass your physical. But I think there's a spot for you. I think Mike Hughes could be that all-encompassing defensive back, more like a safety, but really a cornerback, nickelback, dimeback type guy, kind of like Jalen Petrie or some of these other DBs that they have. I can't remember number 7 in Buffalo, but the way that they use them, I think that is a better suited position for Mike Hughes. But that's going to be difficult because Billy Bowman Jr. has been running with the ones day one. Billy Bowman Jr. came out of Oklahoma. He runs like a 4.35 40. He's great with run defense as a nickelback, and he's quick enough to be able to stay with your slot receivers. I expect for him to unseat D. Alford. I can't wait to see it. I also want to see where Xavier Watts lands up in terms of the free or strong safety. The second string, we probably have one of the better second string safety tandems in the league. I think Xavier Watts and DeMarco Hellams, even though Hellams is coming off of an Achilles injury, who was out all last year. DeMarco Hellams, I think they call him fire and ice. I think Xavier Watts is the guy that can basically make all the plays, kind of like a Jesse Bates the third type player, safety type player, who just is in the right place at the right time. I think he had 2 pick sixes against USC last year. He's just a really good football player and a really smart instinctual safety. I expect for him to carve out a starting role. But he's our second string free safety. Our second string strong safety is DeMarco Hellams. They call him Headache. And I guarantee you both of them could probably be starting somewhere else. When I say starting somewhere else, there's another team. There's other teams that need starting safeties. So that position battle in the defensive backfield, the nickel back between D. Alford and Billy Bowman Jr., as well as Mike Hughes versus Clark Phillips and Jordan Fuller versus Xavier Watts. There's a lot of competition going on in the defensive backfield. The only two people to me that are solidified, AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates Jr. And that's really it. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the episode 2 of the miniseries Falcons Camp Confidential Training Camp and Preseason miniseries. We talked about in episode 1 the offense and what we're looking for in training camp. In episode 2, we talked about the defense and what we expect and what we're looking for the edge players, as well as the interior defensive line and the secondary. And can Jeff Ulbrich change the stigma of this defense? Y'all remember to like, follow, subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook, all of your socials. Go follow Diety Media Network. Follow Lunch Break Podcast. Follow the Splashcast. We have a lot of things coming up. Be on the lookout for some of our trailers and some of our initiatives going on in Diety Media Network. We really, really, really want to start collaborating with other Black-owned businesses and initiatives and community functions going along around. So y'all have a good day. Football season is back, baby.